GM, how we doing? Can you talk free? Oh, I can't hear. Can someone talk so I can see if my headphones are working?
Working is great.
Nice. Rothbard, how does it sound?
It sounds perfect. Way better than last time.
All right. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Last week I was in a bad Wi-Fi spot, but we'll see. All right, we'll get started in just a minute. Yeah. I couldn't hear you.
GM, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. All righty. We will get started in just a minute here, gentlemen and gentlewomen. Okay. Did you announce it for you? Can you just announce to everyone? All right, now that we just tagged everyone, let's give it like another minute and then we'll get going. Nice. The people are flowing in. All right, we have a critical mass here, it seems. So we're going to get started. GM, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Pinto Town Hall. It's been quite an interesting time for the protocol, with the market coming down a bit, but the protocol holding strong. Looking forward to hearing updates from all the contributors and sharing a bit about what I've been paying attention to. All right. Why don't we get started? Freya, how are you doing, sir?
GM, can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
GM, everybody. This week, I did a lot of review, honestly. So on the convert bonus front, been working hard with Burr and Pinto Pirate on the front end and middleware. In the last week, me and Ben discussed, and we wanted to add a new parameter in the convert up bonus blueprint, where a user can specify how many seeds per PDV the user wants to gain, or a limit of how much they want to lose. They could lose when converting up. Felt like it was important because in the case where the user does not want to lose any seeds, not having that ability limits the build, limits someone from creating that order. So we wanted to add that.
I think we lost you, Freya. I think we lost you. All right. In the meantime, while we wait for Freya to come back, why don't we kick it over to Burr?
I heard that people cannot hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now we can hear you. What's up?
Oh,
try again.
So, okay. Where did I lose y'all?
We lost you where you were talking about the convert bonus and the seeds and the requirement that were added.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just working with Burr, sorry, and Pinto Pirate on that. Adding that feature to the front end and middleware as needed. Uh, Additionally working with default juice with two features, the MOW Plant and Harvest blueprint and the beanstalk shipments. So, multiple things are happening in parallel, and hopefully we could, ship these two features, back to back without a large delay. So looking really good on that front.
Awesome. Anything else to mention? I guess not. All right. Thank you very much for that update, Frio. Speaking of the convert bonus, Burr, how are you doing, sir? How's progress going?
GM. Progress is going great. I've been, as Freeho mentioned, we've been working pretty closely together on making sure that this is up to date on all the more recent upgrades, like the seed difference parameters and a couple of other things. I'm getting pretty close to having that ready for testing, and yeah, hopefully it should be ready soon.
Very exciting. Personally looking forward to getting into the weeds and ironing out the front end stuff with you so we can get this out into the world. To me, as I've said before, it's the last big upgrade to the protocol we currently have slated from an economics perspective. So very exciting stuff. All right. On the note of the MOW Plant Harvest blueprint, default juice, what are we drinking today?
DM, default juice as always. So this week I've been spending my time working with Frijo on the, addressing the changes on the MOW Plant Harvest blueprint mainly. And after that, I'm gonna start on the shipments front. It's going very well. I think we're like pretty close to finishing those up. There are like few additional features we want to add, like separating the operator tip for mowing, planting, and harvesting separately, so that the user has like more, granular parameters that they can configure for each operation. Other than that, I've been managing the, some of the Unify stuff, assessing the validity of reports. And I wanted to give a brief update on the Optimism grant. So for those who don't know, Pinto has received the grant from Optimism for building on the OP Stack superchain, which base is the base chain is part of. And I'm very glad to announce that we have received like 40,000 OP tokens, which is equivalent to like 30K USD at the moment. So yeah, this has been going very well, and I hope the support side continues to support us. As base says, build that you will be rewarded. So I guess we see that in action now. But yeah, I wanted to give a brief update on that, and that's it on my end.
Wow, that's really cool. Can you share a little bit about what the grant was for?
Yeah, so the grants are retroactive. So like the Optimism Council runs an algorithm that analyzes activity on the core contracts of our protocol. And depending on some metrics, like the gas consumption, like the total number of unique users that utilize or like interact with the Pinto Diamond, and the TVL, or like the some the volume or the TVL parameters, they run the algorithm and then they determine each month the the grant that you're gonna get, and that grant gets vested over like I think 3 months. So like every time you receive a new grant, it gets vested or it gets added to the stream of tokens that you receive each month. So like the current stream, I think will end like end of the year, and we have like 2 or 3 additional months to receive those grants, and hopefully those run even further. But yeah, that's mostly it. They run an algorithm and they determine a grant based on the participation and how much value you bring to the super chain.
I'm curious if they included the amount that flowed through all of the wells, because I know that there's a lot of volume getting routed through those through the DEX aggregators.
Yeah, so regarding that, we have like a bit of a problem with DeFi Llama. They refuse to include Pinto TVL because they claim that it's endogenous. And that's a policy. Like we've tried very, very hard to convince them that this is obviously not the case. But yeah, if we had TVL listed on DeFi Llama by default, because right now you have like check 2 boxes to see the actual TVL, we would have received way more. But this is pretty unsolvable at this point. Like we've tried a bunch of times and we haven't heard from them anything.
But you mentioned it was like volume flowing through the protocol and not TVL of the protocol. So I would assume that volume flowing through the wells should still count.
Yeah, I'll have to check again on volume. It's for sure the TVL, and yeah, I'll have to check again for volume.
Cool. Yeah, just curious because there should be a lot of volume flowing through.
I mean, there's a lot of interactions with the wells, so that helps.
And can you just share? So, have we gotten one grant for 40,000 OP tokens, or this is multiple grants over time? Because you said it's every month.
Yeah, every time the Optimism team assesses, our metrics, and they give us like an amount per month.
But did we get? Have we gotten one grant so far, or we've gotten multiple grants that total to 40,000 OP tokens?
Well, it's a like multi-month program that runs until the end of the year, and since I think it was February or March, we've received 40K OP.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, I would be curious about the volume stuff. And I'm also curious if you can share or find out how much of a difference in grants we'd receive if this DeFi Llama thing was resolved. Because if we're really getting screwed like that, I think we should consider taking more aggressive action than we have other than just sending them nice messages. So it'd be great if you could get that information.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in general, it's not that dramatic of a difference. So for reference, Morpho, which has like, I don't know, $2 billion of TVL at the moment, received something like 200K OP.
Got it.
So yeah, it doesn't like scale exponentially.
Cool. All right. Thank you for that, Juice. Just quick question for you. You ever think about drinking a different type of juice or?
I'm a creature of habit. I like my default juice every week.
Cheers.
Hey,
All right.
can
Thank
I
you for
butt
that.
in?
Go ahead.
How much money are they giving us to spend,
please.
and can we use it for any purpose?
Yeah, it's tokens. You can do whatever you want with them.
So they'll be vesting now until the end of the year over the next few months in like 1/3 batches.
Yeah, correct.
And then at the end of the year, we will get reevaluated if we can get granted more.
That depends on if they decide, if they're going to renew the program. So I think at the moment the program runs until the end of the year, but I haven't seen if they have plans to renew it. My guess is that they haven't.
Got it. Thanks so much for the clarification, Default. I know that hard work went into that application, so I'm proud to hear that it was successful. I look forward to using that those funds for a good cause.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a benefit of being part of Base and its ecosystem. So I'm very glad we went ahead with that.
Base for the win. I'm bummed they didn't invite us to base camp. That should look fun. Maybe next year. All right. Why don't we kick it over to Floyd Rainweather? How are you, sir, in your post-launch of the land page era?
GM everyone. it's been awesome to see the reception to the landing page. It has been very positive, and you know, a lot of work went into it, and by a lot of people. And I think everyone has a right to be proud of it. And that doesn't mean work stops, right? So for me, on my end this week, has been we made a couple changes to some elements in the overview page and the silo page, make them a bit more obvious so they're clickable. And I'm going to be going through this list of feedback for the landing page. Thankfully, they're very small changes overall. I'm going to be changing some copy, that kind of stuff. So that's going to be like my task for the rest of the week. And yeah, after that, it's just working on the UI to get it even better for everyone.
Thanks, Floyd. Appreciate you. All right. Why don't we kick it over to the pirate himself? How are you, sir?
GM, I'm doing well. I don't have too much more to add. I mean, I think between Burr and Freeho kind of gave my update a bit. Been working with them on getting this tractor stuff ready for the converting up. Pretty close to getting that finished. Just a couple like outstanding issues we're kind of working through together. But in terms of like tracking the orders and the execution within the API, that's just about ready to go. Just a couple little pieces missing there.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Pintacito, how are you, sir?
I'm well. What's up, guys? How are you doing? Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir, we can.
So on my end, been focused mainly on content, obviously continuing with social media content, but have been sprinting on written content. Ben has done a great job of laying the groundwork for a lot of written content. Obviously, you guys have seen some of it come out in terms of the articles. Want to apologize for not having posted something yet this week. We wanted to publish the convert article today, which is such an important part of the system, and we feel like is also really complex. So we finished the copy on that, but I am the non-technical idiot on the team who has been harassing Freeho and Ben for help making diagrams to explain to people the converts visually, and that has turned into quite a stretch, longer than I imagined it would take. So we're probably going to get an article out that is more simple. One of the other articles that we have slated, either tonight or tomorrow morning, and then we can resume the other stuff this next week and moving forward. But I'm quite proud of that, honestly. I feel like, given the system's complexity, it's so important that we dumb it down for even somebody like me to understand. So excited about that. Otherwise, have been making some UI changes, some post landing page launch edits, which Floyd is owning, as well as some other copy stuff across the UI, which wanted to clean up and make simpler. Specifically, the My Silo, previously called the Farmer version of the data page, where people can check out how their silo holdings have changed over time. Wanted to clean that up, make it a little easier to navigate and improve the tooltips there. Beyond that, have been looking through and planning some community growth initiatives. We're cooking up some potential IRL events abroad. So expect to hear more about that as things become clearer. But Pinto's a grassroots movement, and we feel like we should be acting in such a way that brings it to the people. So hoping to connect with people in real life and figure out potentially a referral program. Details have not been fleshed out on that front, but how can we get people inspired by it like we are? Get people to understand the mission, even young people. So that's generally where I am this week.
Thank you, Pintacito. I think you're a lot more than a non-technical idiot, but appreciate the humility and also your ability to get into the mindset of someone that doesn't necessarily understand the protocol. And I think it's helping the quality of our articles a lot. So thank you very much. Now, a bit of an update on my end before we open up the floor. This has been honestly quite a laborious process. I've talked about really trying to revamp the funnel and the user experience for Pinto quite dramatically. And it's been just so much work. I've written many articles at this point, which we are rolling out on a weekly basis now. My hope is to put together like a library, even if we're like rolling them out publicly one at a time. I think it would be great to just get the library set up on the Pinto front end sooner rather than later. So trying to get all those articles in place, detailing basically an intuition for each part of the system, of which there are many at this point. And I have to say, I'm quite proud to be at a point where the protocol is so sophisticated and mature that there are all these different mechanisms in place. So it's been a joy to go back into the weeds and write up how they all work. Well,
Is my audio not working, or are other people?
I can't hear
you guys hear me? I think I dipped out, but I'm back now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I thought it was glitching.
Where did I lose you guys?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Well, I was talking about the PI changes, and then I talked about the front end. Do you guys hear the update on the PI changes?
I think the last thing we heard was you were writing new articles, and it was nice for you to go back and kind of rethink through everything through the articles, but that's the latest.
Got it. Okay, I guess I was out for quite a while. The other thing that I was talking about, and I'm sorry about my poor Wi-Fi again, is the PIs, the updates to Pinto that we've made over the past year. They're not currently particularly well documented, and one of the reasons why we put out Pinto was to get more data and to have an opportunity to continue to iterate on the model. And now that we're 10 plus months into the process, we've come quite a long way. And, if we look back, the quality of the model is significantly better today than the one that we put out, which is something to hang our hats on. But we don't really have docs explaining all the updates and why we did them and how they work and the improvements that they actually make in detail or with clarity. So I've been going in and trying to redo a lot of those. Of the 13 PIs, the most recent PI we did document pretty well. But the first 12, 0 to 11, the docs really are lacking. So I've gone through and rewritten most of them. I'm done with about 9.5 of them and continuing to make progress there. So hoping it goes out sooner rather than later. Obviously going to need some review from Frio and maybe also Pintacito. And those have been chugging along. They're quite dense. because each of the PIs often has multiple changes. But it's been fun to just go back and be like, wow, we've done so much over the past year. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I also spent quite a lot of time over the past week, like a tremendous amount of time with Frio and a new freelance UI UX person revamping wireframes for the new UI that we're going to try to update. So we just put out the landing page. Next, we're going to try to update the overview page, which we've sort of fully wireframed a new overview page that includes pages for like brand new users, more beginner users, and then advanced users, and also started to work on a new silo page and new field page. So a lot of work going into the whole user experience at the moment, and very, very pleased with the progress. So quite a lot of things happening on my end. And yeah, this isn't going to happen overnight, if you will. But I feel like we're well on the way to getting the protocol to a place where it's really palatable for a more general audience. And now that I feel like the model, particularly with the convert bonus and penalty system coming out, is ready to really be tested out in the wild, my focus on this front is to really get it ready for people. So that's the main update on my end. All right. So we've heard from the contributors that are here today. I think now it's an appropriate time to open up the floor, see if people have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, concerns. The floor is open.
Hey guys, I missed the beginning. What's this token allocation about? Is this like related to the base token or something like that?
This is related to the Optimism grant program, where we've received it seems like about a 40,000 OP token grant related to the current Optimism grant system.
Okay, so are you guys moving over to the OP chain?
No, this just has to do with the fact that we're part of the super chain. Base is built on the OP stack, so therefore we qualify for that.
Nice.
Thank you for your question, Sovereign Llama. Always appreciate your questions. The floor is open, everyone.
Hey Ben, what is Nebula? If no one's gonna ask any other questions here.
Great question. Nebula is a new state-of-the-art exchange that Brendan and myself have been building in stealth mode now for a couple years. We think it's going to be a really big deal in the general crypto scene. We still haven't really put out much information about it, as we're still sort of in stealth mode and we're still a little ways away from mainnet. But it is the next chapter in Brendan and my mission to make DeFi and crypto outcompete TradFi. So we started with the currency, and now we're moving on to the exchange layer. When I think about the economy, I think about currency and exchange being two of the primary pieces of the economy. And so we started with the currency, and through all of our work building Beanstalk and now Pinto, we've discovered quite a lot of the problems in crypto and Ethereum and the EVM. And we've spent a lot of time redesigning a lot of this from the ground up to create a new platform for economic activity. And we're launching an exchange called Nebula Exchange in the not too distant future. So that's pretty much all I can share now. But the other thing I will say is I'm quite enthused about the opportunity to integrate Pinto into Nebula. So we're it's going to launch as a perpetuals exchange, and we're going to have Pinto perps at some point. So I think that's something really, really, really cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your questions. What else, everyone? The floor is open. One thing I want to chat about, particularly seeing Mod 323 in here. One of the things that Mod has mentioned multiple times is that we need to get the protocol to lend. And I've talked, I think back in the Beanstalk days, more about how there was a problem when it comes to having Pinto as a currency adopted as a unit of account for loans, which is that the yield from holding Pinto is potentially so high that it can serve as a disincentive to borrow Pinto. And obviously, loans are a big part of the economy. And so, one of the things Mod has suggested is that the protocol itself could lend out Pinto. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot more recently. And I'm coming around to the idea that that is sort of one of the next, when we zoom out and think about how to take the protocol to the next level, with the implementation of the convert bonus, it really is like the completion of this layer of the puzzle. As we start to think about the next pieces of the puzzle that we want to add, I think there's a real argument to be made that that's one of the things to build into the next version of the system. So just a little bit of a note seeing Mod here. Not sure if you have any thoughts on that, Mod, that you wanted to add. No pressure to chime in here, though. All right, the floor is still open. Ford, you got to have some questions, man.
GM. Yeah, so tell me more about this idea, like the lending. You would be like a CDP, or what's the idea behind it?
No, so the thing is, the protocol itself has the opportunity to issue loans at like a rock bottom interest rate because its cost of capital is zero. Like the protocol can always mint Pinto and still be able to honor its obligations to Pinto depositors. So the idea is if the protocol offers Pinto to borrow, the protocol can basically mint extra Pinto to facilitate the loans, where in the short term that will potentially create sell pressure in the system because people will likely borrow the Pinto and maybe sell it to do other stuff. But it also will create longer term demand for the protocol because people have to pay back the Pinto. So the idea there is, unlike other stable coins, which there is a real opportunity cost to lock up capital to create them, which is sort of built into the interest rate for those currencies. It's not really possible to borrow USDC or USDT for less than the federal funds rate, for example. Pinto could potentially issue Pinto loans for less than that, just as an example.
That sounds like something that would only work if Pinto is close to or above peg.
Well, not exactly, because if the protocol, the interest rate that the protocol can charge is unrelated to the interest rate on mints for deposits, if that makes sense, because it's generally an unrelated supply. But the interesting phenomenon is that if the protocol is close to the peg, it's particularly attractive to borrow Pinto because the price is never really going to go up on you. So the value of your obligation to the protocol is not going to go up much, but it could go down if Pinto depegs downward, and you're going to have to pay back less value to the protocol. So the utility of Pinto in terms of a unit of account for loans or just to facilitate loans goes down as the protocol dips further below peg, because now you could sort of have the protocol return to the value target, and then you borrowed at 80 cents, call it, but you have to pay back at $1. So that makes it less attractive, but particularly when the protocol is close to the value target, not necessarily over. It's a very attractive thing to borrow, particularly if the interest rates are very low.
So does that mean that this would have like a liquidation system and like an LTV parameter for assets that's willing to loan against, et cetera, et cetera?
Potentially, although I know some of the people on this call are working on a new uncollateralized lending system. So we could potentially try to integrate something like that into the lending mechanism as well. But we could definitely have like an LTV, there's a variety of different lending mechanisms in DeFi now, but you could potentially even do it uncollateralized, which would obviously be the best from a creating real economic activity perspective, or real economic value.
That seems like it kind of just opens the door for a bunch of dumping and like trying to, cause the system to break, and doesn't really seem like a healthy mechanism to introduce, especially given that the system hasn't gone through too many debt cycles yet.
Yeah, again, I think it's a little bit like, at this point, we're at the stage where we're trying to think about what are the future layers of the system to introduce, and we're trying to figure out how to create utility here. I'm in total agreement with you, though, that at this point, it's a little early in the game to be rolling out a system like that. We are really at the point where now a lot of the focus should turn towards utility as opposed to adding new bells and whistles to the mechanism, from my perspective, because the mechanism is pretty solid.
The collateralized part seems a little bit less risky, but maybe only if it's like at peg or above peg or something. Only in those cases would, the system be more comfortable with like adding more demand, especially in cases when the system is really heating up. But otherwise, it seems like a pretty risky thing to add.
Yeah, I think it actually works sort of in the opposite direction, where as the loans get taken out, it actually creates short-term supply increases. So it should actually decrease the price. And then what it should lead to is longer-term increases in demand, because people have to pay back more than they borrow, if that makes sense.
GM.
GM, maybe you can help us understand here, Mud.
We're all thinking loud here, but some thoughts, yes. First of all, how much the protocol can lend out can be controlled, so it doesn't have to be like infinite. And then you would expect, the expectation is that when you're lending out, people who are borrowing this, loan, they are going to sell it, whether to leverage or like to do whatever it is that they want to do with it. The expectation here is that if the silo isn't able to absorb that sell pressure through converts, and it's like let's say like it was too much, we lend out to a lot, and that caused the price to crash. You would also expect it realistically, then those who are already borrowed will want to buy back and pay back their loans because now it's cheaper. So you'll find this, pull and push forces that should balance each other out. So if you really did lend out too much and a lot of people sold, that should naturally pick up a buy pressure for people to buy their loans and close it cheaper, if that makes sense. I agree. The only risky part here for the borrower is that if they take out a loan when Pinto is depegged, let's say like 80 cents, 60 cents, and then it goes back to $1, that becomes expensive. So the question is, for a borrower then, is that if Pinto's pegged, that's the best loan you can ever buy or take, just because if it depegs, it's a cheaper loan for you. So there's no risk there for the borrower. The risk would be if they take out a loan when Pinto's depegged, but then the question is, how far is it? So let's say it's like at 98 cents, you're talking about, a maximum of 2 cents increase. You compare that to the borrowing rate across, another one, and it probably may make sense for you to take that. But let's say it's like Pinto at 20 cents, it might be like too risky for you as a borrower to take out that loan. And we're talking about here when in the case is depegged and the silo participants aren't able to repeg it back. But the expectation here again is that people on the silo should do this back and forth to get Pinto to be pegged in order for it to have utility.
And how would the interest rate be calculated?
That's truly up to us. The way I would say is that we should always lend out below the lowest current rate on Aave or the other stable coins. In theory, we should always be able to offer loans lower than the other markets like USDC, USDT, etc., or any collateralized stable coin basically.
And should the interest rate on the loan be affected by the peg? Like, I would assume that the lower the peg, kind of the more interest the system would want to charge in order to encourage repeg.
That could also be something to play around there, but I think I would even go as far as saying that Pinto can offer fixed interest rate loans instead of it being like variable or anything like that. You can add that to it so that when Pinto depegs, you jack up the interest rate in order to increase or make the people close their loans immediately, but you don't have to go that far. Just expecting that the lower price is enough incentive for people to close their loans because they're already arbitraging. But yes, you can go even that far and start playing around with the interest rate too.
And would the system require some kind of like redemption queue? Like it was, I think, Bold. I forget the original name of that protocol.
Liquidity.
Yeah, liquidity as well as like asymmetry finance. I think it's basically the same thing, just allowing other types of collateral. And they allow you to kind of like set an interest rate at which you're willing to borrow.
Yeah.
And there's like redemption queue. With that
That's different though. What they're doing here is they have what's called redemption. So we don't have that. I even say that this is like unique to them. For us, you just like sell your Pinto. You don't go back to the protocol and redeem it. In their case, Bold or LUSD, you redeem it for ETH, and that's why they have like a queue. So who gets liquidated first? But that's like we don't have anything similar to that. It's even unique to them. I don't know anyone else who has that model.
Got it. Yeah, it still seems like this this would need like a number of protections so that you can't just deposit a bunch of like, I don't know, let's say Bitcoin, borrow Pinto against it, dump that to buy more Bitcoin in order to like dump more Pinto and like just kind of
that's exactly the use case you would expect people to do the most of it, which is leverage. So you would say the whitelisted assets that we already have, anyone who wants to leverage go long Bitcoin or go long ETH, they would do this. They would loop through us, which is buying Pinto, selling Pinto, taking more BTC, and then just stacking the BTC with us. If you're taking collateral, then the risk really is nothing there, just because the collateral that you're accepting is the same whitelisted asset anyway, so there is no additional risk. Even if you fail at liquidating, because again, it's the asset that you accepted is already what's whitelisted. But yes, these are the details. It can go either way. But the main expectation or the main use case of stablecoins, I believe, in DeFi, the number one use case is leverage. People buying it and then selling it to loop and go along some other asset.
So if I look at Aave, for example, looks like the current APY is 4.22%. So that means, let's say the system would always target like, I don't know, like 1% below that. This is only 3% per year that the system would be willing to, like the potential profit for the system. That's arguably small enough that it's not even worth messing with. What do you think?
I think it's great. Well, how is it low? You're talking about 3% from zero. That's a lot of money we're leaving off the table. It's great for both the borrower and for the lender. 0.5% from nothing is great. Is a great jump.
Wouldn't the amount of Pinto that could be lent out be limited based on, I don't know, like current liquidity in the system or something? Or what was the limit for the system?
I would say if we end up going that route, we would definitely not make it infinite loans. So we will start slow and see how the system reacts to it. Even though if you just open the tap completely, just going back again, as if people take out massive loans and they just dump it and the price crashes, you'd expect these people again to buy and close their loans because they're going to arbitrage it. However, yes, I would say when you start, you obviously start with a small amount to lend out just to see what's happening and ensure that everything works as expected.
Got it. So is this the only potential utility for low interest loans? Is this collateralized version? There's also this uncollateralized idea, but I'm quite hesitant of that because people just might not pay it back. But perhaps there's a third option here. Like Ben mentioned, the perps exchange. Like, does that mean that you could like trade perps at a lower interest rate than like the other exchanges?
Ben can maybe like touch more upon that, but that would just be what are you using to settle using perps, and that would be different than lending. Maybe Ben can touch more upon that. But yes, money has many different utilities. Lending is one of them. Exchange it payments is another. Using it, whatever it is that it's using to settle on, is also something else or something different. All of these could be use cases or utility for the stablecoin.
Yeah, so just to chime in here, the difference is when you're holding, like the idea, as we've talked about, to use Pinto in a perpetuals market would be to have the Pinto be the settlement asset, but in particular, likely S Pinto, which is the yield generating ERC20 wrapper of Pinto deposits, where the yield from Pinto would be able to subsidize the funding rates on both sides of the trade for the perp market. That's different than if you were to borrow Pinto at a very low interest rate. In that case, you're paying an interest rate to the protocol for taking out your loan. Now, in theory, you could borrow the Pinto from the protocol, pay some interest rate, then deposit that Pinto back in the protocol and use it as Pinto, for example. So there might be some arbitrage there that we have to be mindful of when we're designing this system, where ultimately that might be the biggest friction to introducing some type of system like this. But to answer your question, Ford, there's a difference between holding the S Pinto and using that as a settlement asset in a perp market from borrowing Pinto from the protocol to perform looping or some other economic activity.
Got it. You bring up a great point, and that is, when the system is printing, let's say APYs are at like 100%, and you can borrow at anything less than 100%, then actually you're going to get this like infinite loop and the system's going to blow up. So it sounds like you would always have to charge really high interest whenever the system is printing, which kind of negates the benefit of the whole idea.
Yeah, there's options that we should consider in this case. Like perhaps the thing that you're borrowing isn't Pinto, but it's some other version of Pinto, such that in order to participate in that, you'd have to perform some sort of exchange. But yeah, this is sort of a part of the problem that we've discussed in the past, at least internally when we've been talking about this idea that I don't think we've quite resolved yet.
Yeah, you can't really resolve it by borrowing S Pinto because it's the same problem. Then the amount that you owe is going to go up crazy when the system expands. So you'd only want to borrow Pinto, but then you wouldn't be able to. There's no mechanism to like prevent people from taking that borrowed Pinto and putting it back into the silo when the system is expanding. So to me, this kind of like makes it seem like the whole system is simply not going to work in this scenario.
One simple way to do it here is that you stop issuing out loans when the API is like really high. We go through these bursts of high, crazy APYs. When that happens, just stop issuing loans. That solves that.
Got it. Then that kind of negates the mechanism or the idea that it's like a dampening lever when the system is expanding too much. But I guess that's fine too because there's no other way to prevent that from happening. And then it still provides the downside protection because if people think the system is going to expand, they could potentially take out loans right at peg and then deposit into the system, which I guess doesn't actually affect peg if they're merely minting the Pinto against their collateral. So that by itself would not cause the system to expand. But then if there is movement to the downside, it would encourage a bunch of people to repay their loans really fast. So yeah, that's potentially a mechanism. Cool.
Yeah, I would add that it should add a little bit to the expand because if people are taking this loan and depositing it, like betting that there's going to be like mints, that should add a little bit because where is this Pinto being lent out from? The protocol is minting it, so there is a small increase in supply. but it shouldn't make much of a difference. I think the dampening effect, what you're talking about, would be if we change the interest rate of those loans depending on peg. That could have an effect whether you're above peg or below peg. But that's also separate from just the protocol making money from interest rate, not using loans to maintain peg, if that makes sense. Or the protocol can lend out to make revenue, and you can also use that mechanism to help with peg. Those are two different ways to to look at how do you decide what the interest rate is.
But the revenue would always be Pinto denominated, so that the protocol can't really sell the Pinto in order to help repeg.
Sorry, I might have misunderstood that part. What is the protocol selling?
You mentioned the protocol can use the revenue. So let's say the protocol is now making 3% in Pinto terms per year on whatever amount people have borrowed against. The protocol gets this amount in Pinto, but it can't use that pure Pinto in order to drive up the peg, because the only thing they can do with that Pinto is sell it. It can't increase the peg with pure Pinto.
Yes, sorry, I didn't touch on that point. But what you're talking about here, when the protocol takes the Pinto, I mean, how are they? Someone borrowed 100, they're paying back 103 or 110. So someone bought an extra 10 Pintos. So there is some buy pressure there to pay back the protocol. Now the protocol lent out 100. Now it has 110. It's up to us. What do you want to do with this? Ideally, you would just burn the 110, and that effectively created a buy supply or demand.
Oh yeah. Great point. Yeah, I didn't realize that where did that Pinto come from? It came from the borrowers buying the Pinto. So yeah, great point.
Yeah, the way I think about it is not that the borrower's buying the Pinto outright, but when they pay it back, they have to buy it back. So when they borrow, they sell, and then when they have to pay back the loan, they have to buy it back. So if they borrowed 100, then they sell 100. When they buy it back, they're buying back 110 Pinto. So the protocol is basically trading short-term sell pressure for longer-term demand. Very cool. Thank you both for that discussion. It's great to hear lots of ideas here on the farm and what people are thinking about. Going to use the last couple minutes here to open up the floor again. And if there's some free time, maybe I'll comment briefly on how the system's been performing. But this discussion's been great. So if other people have questions or thoughts, the floor is open. All right. The thing I've been watching most in the protocol recently is the outflows from the protocol. So one of the...
It's actually about...
Yeah, it is. It is. I think we have a little ways to go on refining this mechanism. This is why I say, when we talk about what are the next places to take the protocol, these are some of the really interesting discussions that we'll be having to figure out where to take things next and what to develop next. But I think to Ford's point earlier, first we got to figure out how to get people to use the current version of the protocol, have it go through a couple debt cycles and get more data there. But this is definitely an important and interesting discussion in terms of real utility. Okay, so just briefly want to touch on what I've been paying attention on in the protocol. Obviously, the price went up over the past week back into the 90s and has since come back down into the mid 80s. But the most interesting part for me is the price went up largely due to some converts. It's some converts out of Wrap Sol, CVBTC, which Ford Pinto asked about last week, although there's still quite a lot of CVBTC. And then there were some outflows. But interestingly, there were pretty low amounts of outflows. It seems like there was only 4 withdrawals from the system over the past week or so, which totaled just about $60,000. And so we're at the point where the protocol really does, and this was as we raised the crop ratio again, the maximum crop ratio again, the protocol is expressing a stronger and stronger desire. Excuse me, I guess we didn't raise the crop ratio again. We changed the L to SR excessively so that the crop ratio maximum again of 200%. The interesting thing that I've been watching since we did that is what level of outflows have we had? And the price has come up quite significantly from the low 80s to, again, into the 90s and now back down a little bit. But most of the downward price movement has been from the crypto market as a whole coming down with, again, very few outflows. So this is an indicator to me that the change that we made a couple of weeks ago was done properly or done in a way that is generally positive for the protocol, because the price has gone up and the liquidity levels in the protocol have not come down significantly. So something to watch. Something that Ford Pinto has mentioned in the past is whether it makes sense to remove the maximum crop ratio altogether, which I think the data that we're collecting here is that idea is further supported. So definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on further as we move forward here, and something to consider in terms of next small upgrades beyond just this major convert bonus upgrade coming out soon. I think the other maybe interesting thing to comment on is just the effect of the cultivation system. I find to be quite powerful. It's not done from the perspective of, I think that we could figure out a way to potentially ramp up the soil a little bit more quickly. And I think if you look in the grand scheme of things at the amount of Pinto that have been sown since we implemented the system, the rate at which Pinto are sown has still gone down. So I can't say that the mechanism is perfect, but it's really encouraging to see how the temperature in this context has continued to come down and now is generally oscillating in the 650 to 700 range. I think it's right now in the 680s. This is something that to me is a really strong indicator that the mechanism is getting to a place where it's quite sustainable. The main problem that the protocol had originally in the Beanstalk days, and even Pinto when we deployed it, was a runaway temperature. The temperature just kept going up. And this system really, for the first time, particularly with the implementation of the tractor sow order book, has solved this problem. So even though the amount of Pinto being sown isn't perhaps as high as it could be, this to me really does mark a meaningful new chapter in the life of Algo Stables, where the protocol has figured out a way to price interest on its debt in a way that's much more sustainable than anything we've seen in the past. So a bit brief today on my remarks, but I'm really grateful to Ford and Mod for leading this interesting discussion on the lending that the protocol could potentially do. We're closing in here on the top of the hour. So going to open up the floor again very briefly to see if there's any questions about what I said before we wrap it up. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Great crowd today. Looking forward to talking to everyone next week. Take care.